Hello, it's day 135 of the Liberator project, and there's been a sort of interesting development today. I've got a bit of an interesting opportunity which I'm milling over. I was speaking to one of my good friends who lives in Greece, and what he suggested was to go over there and live. Now, he suggested I sell my flat, get whatever I can for it at the moment, because the housing market's probably going to plummet down even further, especially in March when the tax situation changes. So sell the flat for whatever I could get, basically invest the equity from my flat into something like gold or silver or iridium. Could do with some iridium actually, or platinum, some commodity, so it doesn't lose too much money, and then go to live in Greece. Now, a really nice apartment in Greece, where he lives, is about €300 a month. Well, that's lovely. I'd like to live in Greece, and say, it's a nice place, but also it's near the sea, and because of the situation, apparently a lot of people are selling boats, at very competitively priced. So it might be good to go over there, and he would act as my translator and guide, and then could go round and actually buy a boat in somewhere in Greece. Now that seems very a very interesting proposition. Now I went to Greece. I think the last time I went was I went after I graduated with a group of people from the physics from my physics year, and we were quite pleasantly surprised to find that we actually could read the Greek alphabet, because as part of physics you learn all the different names of the Greek alphabet. We can actually read the Greek. That was a perk that none of us really suggested, but obviously that was a while ago and I've probably forgotten it all by then. But it's a nice language. I think I could cope with Greek. I quite like it. I really like the food, and it's nice over there. The weather's good, and I think it will be very healthy for me to go. And worst case is that I have a summer in Greece by the sea. It'd be fantastic. Certainly, it would get rid of all my worries about bills and my business going under and everything. It'll be nice to have a sort of time in Greece and all the pressure left behind. So that seems very a very good suggestion. So I'm going to look into that, and I won't do anything till after Christmas, but in the new year, that's definitely something I should look at. And yes, okay, the house has lost a lot of money, but it might get worse, so it might be better to just do that, go across and see what I could do. But if not, it's not such a bad situation anyway, and so I might be able to get a cheap boat over there anyway. But I say it's healthy, but I might end up, with my friend drinking cheap wine, playing the guitar and singing. But to be fair, the cheap wine over there is a much better standard than it is in this country. Was it Assertino was one of the cheap wines that was quite nice, I seem to remember. But anyway, that seems quite a nice plan, really. And again, the boat yards over there will be a lot cheaper. So if I bought a boat, I could refit it over there. I can get the materials I need shipped over. And so it's definitely a very interesting proposal. And I do like the sound of it a lot. A lot of it makes sense. And I will need to look at that after Christmas and see if I can do that. So that would really put the project back on schedule. Who knows, in a couple of months' time, I could be living in Greece and buying a boat over there. So that's some good news today. So that's the Liberator project for today. Now, if you don't want to hear about my relationships, that's the Liberator project over. Don't listen anymore. But don't listen, then dislike it and push that bad button. Don't downvote me. Though it was suggested that I was getting downvoted from my ex-girlfriends, which is always a possibility. But you can defeat them. You can vote me up. Okay, so not interested, that's fine. See you tomorrow, goodbye. And for the rest of you, you were warned, and I'm going to talk about my relationships, and this is, part 9. Now, I forgot a couple of things yesterday in part 8, but we'll go through those now. Now, when I moved from Essex and had to move out of the house because, my ex had held a knife to a guy's throat, that certainly made the situation a bit untenable. So I had to give up my house in Essex and move out. Now, as I was working, she sorted out some garages for my cars, because I owned two TR7s at the time that I was doing up. Now, I had a red one that was perfectly good. I mean, it was nearly finished. All it needed was a little bit of it needed the trim refitted on the driver's door. Then it was perfect, or perfect enough, and then I was going to sell it. And I had a black one which I'd managed to get the engine going. I'd fixed the engine. I'd put so it drove. I'd put a new carpet in it, and the bodywork wasn't too bad. It still needed a few things done, and I didn't know it needed to be taken for an MOT. So there might have been a few other things with it, but it drove. The brakes seemed to work. Steering was fine. It had a brand new carpet. It was looking nice, and what I needed was to sort out. There's a little bit of wiring on the dashboard that needed to be done, and also the wheels. I stripped one of them down already. All 4 wheels or 5 wheels needed stripping and then spraying, and that was that car done. And that was going to be sold in the spring as well. So that was that was my plan. Now, as I was at work, she sorted all this out, and she obviously put the garages in her name as she was doing it. Now, after about 6 months in Staffordshire, one day, I found a letter from the landlord about the garages, and it said basically, unless I brought the account up to date, they were going to close the account and basically clear the garages. So, again, I was like, well, sort it out. What is this? She was like, no problem. I go, well, sort it. This is important. So I kept asking, and nothing seemed to be happening. And then I said, well, okay, despite the fact I was ill, I was working full time, and I was driving to Staffordshire and everything. It was, I thought, look, I can't. There comes a point when you think, look, it's more stressful them dealing with it. I'll deal with it, because as far as I'm concerned, I've made payments, and it could only have been like 1 month that was a miss somewhere. So I said, look, give the letter to me. I'll sort it. Don't worry about it. And she said she'd lost the letter. Now, that was annoying, because it was like, well, we had a letter. That was a very important letter, and that was lost. And I said, well, give me their contact details. And she couldn't remember the company name, and then she didn't have the phone number. But I said, well, this is, we've got to sort something out with this. This is terrible. We must find this. And then, when I went up the next weekend, she was going, don't worry, it's all sorted. Forget about it. So I said, oh, you've spoken to someone? And she was like, it's all sorted. And I said, no, you've spoken to someone. And she was like, no, it's all sorted. I said, well, it's not all sorted unless you've spoken to someone and found out what's wrong with this account. You can't ignore this. And she was like, it's fine. So, again, a bit of a fraught situation about this. And then, the next week, it was still the same thing. And she said it was sorted. And I was like, have you spoken to someone? And she said, yes, I've spoken to a woman about it. It's all fine. And I said, well, that's all right then. Can we, have a statement of the account? Can we check that that's done? And I said, well, can I have their number? Because in future I'll deal with them rather than you, because it just made, it'd be far easier if I was dealing with them, given the weeks and weeks of arguments over it. It was just, give me the number. And she goes, well, I haven't got a number for them. So it's like, well, if you haven't got a number, how did you call them? She goes, yes, I phoned them. Everything's absolutely fine. And I'm like, well, you can't have called them without a number. So I said, I know what. I had a mobile phone. It had all the list of numbers she's called. So I thought, great, I can just look this up then. So I looked up all that out, and there was no numbers to back to Essex on her phone, going back weeks. So I said, well, you can't have spoken to anyone because it's not on your phone. And she goes, oh, I used a call box. Now, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you use a call box that you had to walk down into town for and pay money for when you've got a perfectly good mobile there? That made absolutely no sense to me. And even so, if she used a call box, she must have had a number to call. So it's sort of, I said, well, give me the details you used when you made the call on the call box then, right? I didn't believe it was a call box for a minute, but it was like, okay. And she got so angry. I mean, absolutely ballistic, screaming rage. And it was like, look, I need this. This is important. We need to get this sorted. And she's going, I've told you, it's been done. Will you, and all this abuse. I'm like, okay, right. That's, bear in mind, it was only about now I was twigging, she was insane over the thing with the kitchen. And, people that, you've got to realise, people that are mentally ill, because, they get very, very good over the years at hiding these things because they know it scares people off. So they become very devious, about hiding these sort of things. And it's only when you've been out with someone for like 6 months or getting on for a year that you start seeing that things they've told you are not true. Anyway, it's I think that's a big problem as people get older, that the people that are single, a lot of them have got very devious or very good at hiding their problems, and it takes a while to really see through that. But in my defence, I was also very ill, and you've got to realise I had absolutely no one to help me at the time. So it was a case of, well, I needed help, and the fact someone's offering to help me is like a godsend. It was like, oh God, I can just worry about getting over the chemotherapy and they can deal with other mundane stuff, and that's great. Keep me working, keep me healthy, keep me working, and I'll sort everything else out. But anyway, so this was bad news. So I drove to the garage on the grounds I thought there might be a name of the company. I didn't even know the company name. I drove to my garages and see if there was any details around there, and there was a notice pinned to both my garage doors, and they were empty. And the letter said that because they hadn't heard anything from me, they'd cleared out the garages and sold the equipment to pay for the bills. Now, bear in mind, in the garages, I had 2 TR7s, one of which was just about ready for sale, and the other one only needed probably 2 weekends to get up for sale. And it wasn't just the 2 TR7s, I had a complete set of snap-on tools. I had a hoist, a generator, there was literally thousands of pounds worth of tools in these garages, if you added it up. And, but anyway, I had their details, so I phoned them up. And, they said that, for one, that no woman works for them. So when this woman was telling me that she'd spoken to a woman about the garages, obviously that could not have been true because they didn't have a woman there. And also they were legally entitled to clear the garages, and they hadn't heard anything from us for months. And they said they'd written dozens of letters to address in Staffordshire. There'd been no response, and there'd been no payment. Now that was wrong because I knew I'd been paying for the garage. I had payments coming out of my account for it, and but they said that it was outstanding. I forget the real figure now, but it was about £400. But the upshot was I'd lost about £7,000 worth of equipment and cars as a direct result of this. Now, before this, in hindsight, but due to her delusions and insanity, I'd already lost a Mark III Capri, and that was probably at the time worth about £3,500. I think that's what I'd paid for it. And nowadays it'd be worth a lot more. But that was entirely due to her delusions, and I didn't. If someone is adamant they're right about something, and you're feeling ill, and they're telling you stuff, they're telling you what you want to hear, you believe it. So anyway, I confronted her with this knowledge, and she denied it. She said that she knew nothing about the garages, and I'd made it all up. And it was like, I was like, but we've talked about this for the last 2 months. She goes, no, never mentioned it. And it was like, this is what I mean. It was just absolute insanity. And I said, but you told me last weekend that you'd spoken to someone. She goes, no, never said that. I didn't know anything about the garages. I thought you were sorting those. And I said, but I gave you the letter. She goes, no, never received any. And she absolutely flatly denied it. And it's a case of what do? You've got someone that's insane, just denying things. Now, it turns out that the company that did the garages reckoned I was, quite a few months behind with payment. And I said that wasn't possible. It could only be a month behind because I had like 6 months worth of payments coming from my bank account. Now, when I checked my bank account, yes, the exact amount had been taken out every month, but it had been transferred to an online account. It hadn't been transferred to the garage, to the landlord itself. And more rather worrying than that, I also got letters at the time from my mortgage company saying they were starting repossession. And it turns out that she'd also done the same thing to my mortgage. She was taking out the exact figure each month from my bank account, so, you know, whatever it was, down to the penny, the exact figure every month, and transferring it onto an online account she'd set up. So suddenly, you know, here I am. I've lost a Capri that was £3,500. I've lost all my tools, 2 TR7s, so that's about £7,000 worth of this equipment there. I'd give her a deposit for the flat. I'd given her, you know, the rent. There was about another £5,000 there. And it turns out, you know, that I was, you know, I hadn't paid the landlord. And, you know, he thought it was good of him to ignore the bill. Well, yeah, because he got two TR7s from the deal for 400 and something pounds. But that bill was dropped. But then I still had like massive deficit on my mortgage. I mean, we're talking about another, I don't know, figuring out about £6,000 was missing on my mortgage account. So it, all this money that was going out that she, you know, when I was ill, she was transferring. She wasn't transferring it and wasn't paying bills. But a cursory glance at my bank statement, it was like, oh, that's been covered, that's absolutely fine. And, you know, thank God I paid my car insurance up front. Otherwise, I'd have been driving without realising I had no car insurance, or my mobile as well. You know, those bills were at least paid from either my company or in advance. So they had actually been paid. But anyway, this was a dire situation because I was barely able to work. I was very ill, and suddenly what are we talking here? You know, tens of thousands of pounds in the red that I know nothing about. Now, I'll carry on. That's another 18 minutes or so ranting on about this situation. I will tell you more tomorrow, but and what happened. But anyway, if you're not interested, that was fine. You haven't got to watch this bit. And if you did watch this bit, upvote me. Don't downvote me. Upvote me. That'd be really helpful. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you more tomorrow. Goodbye.